At dawn, soldiers of the British Highland Brigade began advancing through a waterlogged field. Suddenly, from the enemy trenches, the sharp crack of rifle fire and the explosion of artillery shells erupted. The Highlanders charged forward fearlessly, but the hail of bullets and shrapnel brutally cut them down. Many fell back in fear, while some brave soldiers pressed on, only to die before reaching the enemy trenches. This scene was as merciless as battles on the Flanders or South African fronts. But this was not a world war. It was 1899, and the battlefield was a land scorched by fire in South Africa. After the Pretoria Convention of 1881, the South African Republic had gained formal independence through war, although Britain controlled external affairs. Some within the Republic doubted whether they were truly free. On the other hand, the powerful British felt they had been too lenient with the Boers. Amid this uncertainty, a fragile peace remained. In 1886, the discovery of massive gold mines in the Witwatersrand Reef transformed the Republic's economy. Suddenly, large numbers of English-speaking outsiders, known as outlanders, flooded into the region, eager for wealth. The small town of Johannesburg quickly transformed into a mining city. The rural Boers grew anxious over their cultural and political dominance. President Paul Kruger denied the outlanders political rights, despite their heavy taxation. This injustice became a grievance for powerful British imperialists, especially Cecil Rhodes. In 1895, Rhodes organized a military raid called the Jameson Raid, trying to increase British control with the help of outlander opposition to the Boers. The raid quickly failed, and Jameson and his troops were captured. By 1899, tensions boiled over. Alfred Milner became Britain's new High Commissioner and adopted an aggressive policy. The Boer republics of Transvaal and Orange Free State united and demanded British troop withdrawal. When Britain refused, the Boers invaded British territory and war broke out. At first, the British Army was weak and insufficient. Their single-shot rifles had been replaced by Lee Metford bolt-action rifles, and the red uniforms changed to khaki, but the army numbered only 10,600, mostly border guards. The Boers were expert horsemen and highly skilled marksmen. They traveled with their own horses and weapons, dressed in civilian clothes that blended with the environment. The Boers' main tactics were sudden attacks on British-controlled areas, besieging key posts, and encouraging uprisings among Boer-sympathetic Africans. However, their time was limited as a large British force was due to arrive in November. In the Taal, Boer commander Piet Uys was 66 years old and personally doubtful about the war, but had won early battles. By late October, the Boers halted British advances in some attacks, but Uys was wounded and later died. The Boers besieged several towns in Natal: Ladysmith, Mafeking, Kimberley. The British had to expend all their energy to relieve these towns. In November 1899, the British First Army Corps began arriving. However, their first counterattack was poorly coordinated and weak. The British fought unfamiliar terrain, and Boer guerrilla tactics and traps caused them severe setbacks. On November 15th, at the Battle of Chieveley Railway, a British armored train was destroyed by a Boer attack, and many British soldiers were captured, including young Winston Churchill. In December 1899, during the infamous Black Week, the British suffered 3 major defeats. At Stormberg, Lieutenant General Gattaker's troops lost their way and fell into a Boer trap. At Magersfontein, Lieutenant General Methuen Highland Brigade marched into a deadly Boer gunfire ambush during a rainy night. Ultimately, the British lost about 900 men and withdrew. The town of Ladysmith remained besieged. These defeats were a profound shock to the British. They realized how difficult the Boer tactics and the realities of this war were. The British changed leadership and tactics. Under Field Marshal Roberts and General Herbert Kitchener, they formed small, mobile flying columns instead of large formations, increased reconnaissance, and improved logistics. They adopted a scorched earth policy, burning farms, destroying crops, and seizing livestock to cut off Boer food supplies. They built blockhouses and barbed wire fences to limit Boer movements. This policy left thousands of Boer women and children homeless. The British established concentration camps where many died from malnutrition and disease. By 1902, the Boers realized continuing the war would lead to their destruction. Finally, they agreed to peace talks and surrendered. Although the Boers lost their independence, their courage, arms skills, and innovative tactics remain memorable in world history. So friends, if you want to watch videos like this, please subscribe to the channel.